people were really weirded out by going down, but it was not because of the Catholic Church. It was because medieval people had a view of sex very similar to the Romans, where it was a thing that an active male participant did to a passive female participant. They saw sex as an act of domination by one party over another submissive party. They did not see it as something people did together. Medieval Europe was very patriarchal. Masculinity was very important, and performing what they saw as the active male role in sex was part of that. A man going down was seen as an unmanly act of submission. If you read about smear campaigns of Roman emperors, you will see a lot of times that their opponents would accuse them of going down on people, because that was seen as something that no real man would ever do. The Romans were somewhat okay with men receiving oral sex, but generally only from what we would have considered sex slaves. They didn't really care about the gender of the sex slave, but they did care that free men and male Roman citizens were always playing as what they would have seen as the active or masculine or dominant role. The Romans saw oral sex of all kinds as distasteful between married couples, and oral sex just in general was not encouraged. Even centuries after the fall of the Western Roman Empire and the spread of Christianity, this general taboo on oral sex persisted. But it was a pre-existing cultural feature and not something that the medieval church invented. Medieval people also had sanitation concerns with oral sex. Medieval people were, in fact, concerned with hygiene and cleanliness, and I'm tired of hearing that they weren't. They were just as clean as you and I would be if someone took away our access to clean running water. While the Catholic Church in the Middle Ages did forbid all forms of non-procreative sex, the effectiveness of their enforcement varied greatly. Usually, the more that ecclesiastical writers complained about a thing, the more that people were doing that thing. It is rare that we see clergy in the Middle Ages complaining about oral sex. They complained about a lot of other kinds of sex. Medieval people were really into leg stuff. So much leg stuff. At the height of their power in the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church regarded celibacy as the most holy state, and they wanted sex to happen as little as possible. They tolerated sex in the context of marriage when there was the possibility for procreation. But it was because they saw it as the least bad form of sex, not because they wanted couples to have a bunch of kids. The church also prohibited all sex, including married heterosexual sex, on holy days, holy fasts, on feast days, Sabbaths, etc. They had so many time frames with bans on sex that one historian calculated if medieval people had actually adhered to the rules, everyone in Europe would have had only like 2 birthdays. Obviously, people were born all year long, so we can infer that people were having sex all year long. Most people were flaunting the church's sex rules on some level. The thing to remember about the church in the Middle Ages is that they were at once way more influential than our modern secular society can comprehend. They were also not that powerful at all. They had a lot of what gets called soft power, but they were rarely able to enforce anything that didn't also benefit people with hard power. Then, just as now, culture and politics often hijacked religion. But to my original point, Europe had taboos on oral sex way before Christianity was invented.